This conference will now be recorded.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Before I get going, I want to turn this over to Tom Head. Hopefully he's on the line. And I'm going to let him kind of do the introductory setup for this, for everything. Tom, are you there?
Right. I am, Colin. Good morning.
Morning.
Before I get started, if I can have everybody place their phone on mute, because there is some background noise, and I think it'd be helpful for everybody to hear what everybody's going to be speaking about. So, well, first of all, team, I'd like to welcome everybody to our first Safety Advocate Council meeting. I wanted to be a part of this meeting this morning, and I appreciate Colin allowing me to be a part of this. Let me start off by saying to everyone on here that your participation and your role within the Safety Advocate Council meetings are paramount. And let me be very direct so that you can expand to this to all the employees that may not be a part of this call today. In my opinion, there is nothing more important in our company than the safety of our employees and the safety of our customers and the safety of our partners, our vendors, and their employees that help us perform the work for our customers throughout North America and the world. So to be very clear, there's nothing more important on my agenda than your safety, our company's safety, and that comes ahead of revenue, profits, and anything else that's measured in the company as a success metric as it relates to financial aspects of the business. And not just to make sure that those are hollow words, because they're not. We're going to have these meetings. We're going to make safety a part of our DNA, just like we have made revenue, operating income, how we go to market with our brand as a day in and day out function. Safety needs to become the most important thing that we do at the corporate level, at the field and branch level, at the job level. We've gone to a lot of effort to develop this committee. Colin Trudeau is the chair, along with Tom Snow and Crystal. They're going to be working, those three together, to help transform and to bring to the markets and to the branches and to our jobs a focus on safety. It's going to take us a little while to get to where I think we should be, but the thing I never want to do is walk in the door one day and have an accident that has hurt an employee or a partner's employee trying to help us take care of clients. So we're going to be doing a lot of things this next year, implementing some ground rule policies and procedures. We're going to be focusing in on training. We're going to be focused on corporate training, branch training, but at the job level training. And we're also not only going to hold our employees and me accountable for safety in this company, but we're also going to hold our vendors and their employees accountable to safety. And so we may run across some vendors that may not possess the safety focus that we want. As a company, we'll make decisions if we continue to do business with them. We may have employees that don't want to embrace safety as a whole. We may make a decision that they're not the right employee for us as an organization. So this is new. I will say in my 14 years as the president of this company, we have not put this kind of a focus on safety, and that is my fault, but we are going to make up for that, and it starts today. So I look forward to hearing the call mature today, and I look forward to seeing us as a company mature safety-wise so that we're all, every day, the number one thing we think about is not revenue, not profitability. Do we have an environment and a workplace that is safe for all employees and all of our contractors and all of our subs and all of our customers? Thank you for making this real important to yourself and your team. I'm going to count on everyone that's on this call to take this message and make sure it echoes in all corners of our branches and out to our jobs. And if any of you ever see anything that is not being conducted the way it should be from a safety standpoint, feel free to call me directly, because this is something that we have to get better at in 2020. So with that, Colin, thank you for taking on this new role and helping us start this process with the advocates out in the field. And I look forward to being a part of this team every month, every quarter, every week, every day of the year. Whatever I can do to support this team and this committee, let me know. Thank y'all all.
All right. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. So kind of getting started, one thing I forgot to disclose to everybody, we are recording this. And I want to tell you the reason why we're recording it is just so as we bring on new locations, as we start rolling out, continue to add people to this council, we want them to see what the nuts and bolts of this whole thing is and how it started from. So we're recording it from that standpoint just so you guys know. The other thing I want to encourage before we get much further into this is for you guys. This is for you to help develop your individual location, which is why we've invited the general managers, ops managers, construction managers. We want as many people from your locations involved with these meetings when we have them. That being said, if you have questions as we're going through here, if you have something that you feel that would help improve the conversation, I'm going to encourage you guys to go ahead and reach out at any time. Most of you guys, like Tom asked you to be on mute, but I've left you guys open so you can unmute your phones if you want to chime in or if you have a question or something is not clear. So on that note, I want to go ahead and get started on everything. So let me kind of real quick discuss what we're going to be covering today. One thing, since this is new to all of us, or I say new to all of us, a lot of us, this is a new position, a new opportunity for you at your individual branch. Meaning this is safety. Yes, we've always had safety at a certain level, but we've never put this focus on it. So I want to make sure we're on the same page as far as why safety is important. We're going to talk about some of our safety performance matrix that we follow as a company, and things that we're going to be watching going forward so you can kind of see how you're doing and identify potential areas for improvement or opportunities to get better. We're going to outline the safety plan for 2020. Just so you guys know, we started this process, and I say we, Crystal, Tom Snow, and myself we meet every week, and this is something that we started back in November, around that time, working together on this. And yes, I am listed as a chairman, but really this is a co-equal partnership that we all three work together. And all three of us are here to support you guys out there in individual branches to make sure that you guys are able to succeed in your roles. And so we're going to talk about how we're going to do that and what type of training and type of plans that we have in place so that you can succeed. We have a process that we call the safety circle. We're going to dive into that and explain what we're talking about. And we're going to talk about, finally, kind of what's going to happen, what you can expect going forward. Now, these calls, we're going to do them every month, but we do have a game plan on how we are going to roll this out over at least for the next 5 months. And beyond that, it's really going to be up to you guys to tell us where you feel like we can help you succeed at your individual area, your individual branch. So that being said, I want to start with this picture. And I think this picture is kind of a cool picture because it kind of shows how a iceberg really works. And most of you guys are very well aware that an iceberg, the tip of it is usually the only thing that's above the surface of the water. Everything else, or the majority of it, the mass majority of it is actually below the water. So you may be asking, what does this have to do with safety at all? Well, I want to kind of break this down for you guys and break into two categories, direct cost and indirect cost. So in general, when we think about safety, when we think about an incident that happens and somebody gets hurt, we think about how we have to pay for doctor bills. We think about how people have to go through physical therapy and the medicine they may have to take. And those are our direct costs. Those are things that are really easy to measure. But when we're talking about safety, there is so much below the surface that we don't always think about that impact you directly and impact your teams directly. And what I'm referring to is, think about it. When somebody gets hurt, your productivity is going to stop for a variety of reasons. It may be because that person that got injured may be a key piece to what you're trying to accomplish for that day. So now you have to stop and address that, and you're not going to be able to produce and do the work that you should be doing because you're having to address somebody that's been injured. And that person being injured may have to go to the hospital or may have to go to the doctor, and you may lose production for the rest of the day, or even potentially in some situations for weeks at a time. It takes when an incident happens, the supervisors have to do some type of investigation to figure what's going on, and you got all the paperwork associated, the administrative cost associated with it. Not to mention your time as a supervisor that you have to stop and take care of the situation. Now, these are all things that take time that you could be doing other things like supervising your crews. But also think about from the standpoint, if somebody gets injured and you have to replace that employee, think of the time it takes for training, in addition to overtime, till you can replace that person. And of course, there's legal fees. You got to repair the equipment, negative publicity. If something happens and we are sued for whatever reason because we did not take care of our employees or we did not provide a safe environment, that now goes out to the public and can directly affect us from getting additional jobs and other things in the future. So all these things are items that we don't always think about, but are very important to make sure that we are addressing them, because think about the morale. If people are always getting hurt at your branch, who's going to want to do that job if they know that the last person that did it got hurt? And what kind of production are you going to have if it is an unsafe environment? So think about it. It is more than just the medical costs and the doctor visits and all that are associated with this. So keep that in mind as we continue to talk about safety. So there are two matrix that I want to talk about, and these are things that I don't want to dive into too deep at the moment. These are things as part of the safety advocate, as being a safety advocate, you will learn more about in the future. But I want to kind of bring up a few of the metrics that we watch. Now, these are not necessarily just our matrix. These are actually what OSHA requires us to note and record. The first one I want to talk about is TRIR, which is total recordable incident rate. What this number does is takes all of your injuries that you've had at your specific branch, how many days that person was actually off of work, and also looks at how many employees you have. So the more employees you have, the more hours you have worked over the course of a year, it helps drive that number down. But if you have a lot of injuries, that number will go up. So that is one of the first metrics that OSHA looks at. The other one is DART, which stands for days away, days that you had to do restricted, that somebody was, let me back something. Days away is somebody that was not able to work because they were injured, because the doctor said they couldn't work. Restricted deals with days that they couldn't do their normal job, but maybe you had them in the warehouse doing clean, or maybe you had them sitting at a desk doing other things because they couldn't do their normal task. And transferred is referring to somebody that was doing one job, but you know what? Now they can no longer do that job. Now they've been transferred to another role. Maybe they've been transferred to the office, or they've been transferred to a warehouse position because they can no longer perform the job that they were supposed to out in the field. Again, these are things that OSHA requires us to track. These are things that we're able to measure relatively easily with proper reporting so that we can see how we're doing. So again, I don't want to dive into exactly how that's calculated right now. We'll get into that later on in the coming months. But I do want to talk about how we're doing overall as a company. And actually, Crystal, can you see, are you able to see that bottom line? Yep. The 5.89? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the 5.89 at the very bottom of this screen, if you guys can see that, is where we stand as a company in regards to our TRIR. And the DART number over there, the 4.84, is where we stand as a company. Now, we have to track it as a company, but we also break it down by individual stores. So kind of give you an idea of the industry average. The industry average for restoration and mitigation is right about 2.0. Now, you can see that's pretty much the majority of our locations, or not the majority, at least over half of our locations are actually above that line. Now, you will notice below that line, I just want to point out a few things for those of you guys that are actually in our CAT locations that are in Miami, Orlando, Washington, D.C., and New York City. Currently, for 2019, your numbers are all lumped together with CAT. So when you go to try to bid on a job and they want to know what your TRIR numbers are, your safety numbers are, these are the numbers we have to give them. So you're below average, which is acceptable for now. It's not where we want to be, but it's better than being above average, which when you start looking at our other locations that are guys at the top that are currently in red, you guys are above average. We see that as an opportunity that we need to, that's why we're doing the safety committee, and that's why we're establishing the safety council, so that we can start improving these scores. Now, this is not put up there to say, so these numbers are not here to say, hey, look, this is where you're deficient at. This is where we're looking at that our locations in the top 5 that we want to make sure that we're concentrating and really paying attention to make sure that we're getting these scores to come down over the next year. So how are we going to go about doing this? Well, Tom kind of alluded to it earlier, that we have, first off, established a safety committee. And Tom Snow, Crystal, and myself are the ones that we meet on a weekly basis. And right now we're spending a lot of time trying to set up the program. But we are also looking at every single incident that comes through. Anytime that you guys have an injury or have an accident or a near miss, anything like that at your branch, we're asking you to fill out the paperwork and make sure that we get it to Crystal so that we can start tracking this stuff. And it's important that we know it so we know what our problems are so that we can make sure we put plans in place to make sure they get corrected. So in addition to this committee, I will say that Tom Head and Rob Clay are also very active participants in this committee. They act as advisors. They sit in on some of our meetings, and they're the ones that really are helping us drive this throughout the entire company. And I bring that up because I want to make sure that you guys know that this is not something that Tom Head is wanting to do. This is not something that Colin Trudeau or Crystal or Tom Snow are trying to do. This is something that Rob Clay, who is one of our regional vice presidents, this is something that Mark Dugan and Jeremy James, who you guys all ultimately report to, they are 100% behind this as well. And they want to make sure that we create an environment for safety throughout the entire company to make sure that when you guys leave at the end of the day, you're able to go home to your families, spend time with your families, and not be injured because of something that happened at work. So because of that, since we're watching and reviewing all these incidences now, and we have a group of people that are looking at them, we can make recommendations to our upper management, to our executive team, as in regards to what we see are opportunities to get better. And as part of that, one of our first recommendations we had is we felt like we needed to establish a safety advocate council. Hence the reason why all you guys have been invited to this meeting. So our safety committee essentially is the first layer, and the second layer is our advocate council, which again is you guys. We envision this role as being somebody that is at the local branch level that can be our eyes and ears, because it's too hard for us to travel all over the country just because somebody got injured. Now, if a major incident happens, I can tell you right now, you're going to have one of us on site as quick as possible to help facilitate any investigation or everything that needs to happen. But for the more minor ones that may occur, this is where we're going to ask for your guys' help. If somebody falls off a ladder and it is a minor injury, we're going to ask you to collect that information so that we can evaluate what we can do to help prevent it in the future. Something that we'll talk about more later on as well is job hazard analysis. We're going to ask that you guys start performing formal investigations formal analysis of potential hazards on job sites. Now, this is something we're not going to do today, but this is something that we're going to train you on so that you have the experience and the knowledge in order to go down that road. The thing I did skip over is branch trainings as well. Now, with branch trainings, what we're referring to is we are looking to you guys as an advocate at your branch to make sure that we, as a company, are providing adequate training. Now, that may be anything from toolbox talks. You guys are well aware, most of you guys should know at this point that we've asked you to get your OSHA 30. There's going to be a point in time where we're going to ask more people to get their OSHA 30 and their OSHA 10s training, and we're going to end up having awareness training in addition to your toolbox talks and in addition to potential on-site job safety training as well. So again, we're just kind of outlining the structure at this point, what we're looking for you guys to do. We're getting more in detail as we move through this process. The final layer that we want to throw out there is the actual training itself, which is, again, I kind of jumped ahead of myself, but the awareness training this boils down to a more formal training. We can do toolbox talks, which is usually anywhere from a 10 to 30-minute conversation in regards to a specific topic, whether it be about ladder training or fall protection. It's more of a reminder. Awareness training is more in depth. This may be where we do ladder inspection and ladder safety training, which may take closer to an hour. It may be respiratory, wearing respirators and awareness associated with that, and that may require a lot more time. So depending on what it is that we're talking about, we're going to have various different levels. Again, we're not asking you to perform all of this training. We will be working with you to be able to either source or provide that training for you guys to do that, and we're going to provide the training so that you can also know how to do that. And we'll talk more about that in the toolbox training. We talk about what we're going to talk about next month as well. So I kind of want to lay out something that we're referring to as the safety circle. Now, what the safety circle is this is how we look at just about everything that we're going to do going forward. You're going to see this safety circle a lot more in the coming months. And the safety circle, it starts with training. Now, the training, again, whether it be awareness, whether it be a toolbox training, or you going out and get your formal certification, which is your OSHA 10 or OSHA 30, or there's a whole nother level above that we can start working towards. But training is just the first part. Because after you've trained it, it's one thing to do training. We've all gone through training in our company, but then we don't always follow through and always implement that training. Just because you teach somebody how to properly ascend a ladder and descend a ladder, you got to make sure that we're also out in the field climbing the ladder and coming down off the ladder appropriately every time. You got to make sure we're always having 3 points of contact. Make sure we're not reaching out beyond the reach of the ladder. You've got to make sure that we're being consistent out in the field, and make sure the training that you've gone through, that your team is making sure they're implementing it out there on a day-to-day basis. So let's say that we go through training and we've implemented training. Well, we realize this training process is going to be always evolving. So we may have ladder training today for you, which we do have established awareness ladder training that we can help you guys administer to your locations. But that ladder training may need to be changed because of maybe we don't cover a specific topic. Maybe we don't stress certain things enough. So we're going to be constantly evaluating our training. Is it appropriate? Do we need to add to it? Are we covering areas that we don't need to? Part of our issue with our industry is we do a little bit of everything within our industry. We do construction. We do janitorial type services. We do demolition. We kind of cover the whole gamut, and depending on the project we're on, we literally handle just about anything you can think of. Even if it's not us doing it, maybe it's us subbing out our asbestos removal and things of that nature. We're still overseeing a lot of that. So we need to make sure we're evaluating our training. And then after we're done with that, once we evaluate it, we need to review it in addition to make sure that we are identifying where our deficiencies are. I mentioned earlier that some of the scores we had on TRIR, that some of our locations are a little bit higher than we like to see. Well, this is an opportunity to review and identify what those problems are, and see what we can do to put systems in place and correct it. So once we've done that, we also need to follow up to make sure things are happening out in the field. And this is something that we're going to really need your guys' help on, is to follow up to make sure that this whole process, the training, the implementing, the evaluation, that we're following up in the field, and then that we're going to ask for you to give us the information so as a committee we can follow up as well. And that may mean that we have to go and make specific recommendations to the executive committee, the executive team, that we need to make sure we are providing this safety precaution or this training to everybody, and make sure that we're being consistent throughout the entire company. So as part of that, I do want to touch base on, I know that a lot of you guys right now are doing toolbox talks. I know a lot of you guys have resources. The issue that we have that I see is we have varying different degrees. Our ultimate goal is to get all of us at all of our branches all on the same page, so that when somebody goes from DFW to Chicago to do work, or you have a CAT supervisor that comes into your market in San Francisco to do work, that you guys are on the same page and we have the same training and we're talking the same language, especially when it comes to safety. So that's one less hurdle that we have to overcome as we continue to work together as a company and continue to grow as a company. So I'm going to pause there for a minute. I've covered a lot and I haven't really stopped. And before I kind of go on to what is going to happen in the future and kind of what our plans are and moving forward, are there any questions about anything that I've covered so far? And it doesn't have to be just the safety advocates. This is also open to any of the GMs or sales managers, ops managers, construction managers that are out there as well. Is there any comments or questions that any of you guys have? Back in January, we asked everybody at every location, every general manager, to help us identify a safety advocate in every location. And at this point, everybody has identified somebody. And we asked you guys, if you didn't already have your OSHA 30, to go out and get your OSHA 30 in general industry or in construction. Now, for the most part, most of you guys have accomplished this. Now, we gave you a very short window to get it done because we asked you to have it done before this meeting, actually before the end of January. We understand there's scheduling conflicts, trying to locate a class and everything else. So some of you guys didn't complete it, and we're fine with that. However, one thing we do want to see from you guys is we do want to know what your plan is. So if you don't already have your OSHA 30, what we would ask you to do is let us know what your plan is and how you're planning to do this, whether you're doing an online course or if you're waiting for a class, which is what we would prefer you guys to do, is actually go sit down in the class and go through your OSHA 30. If that's what you're doing, you're waiting for one that's scheduled next week and next few weeks, that's fine. Please just let us know. But one thing I do want to introduce to everybody, as you get your certifications, we would ask that you take a picture of it. If you can scan it, that's even better, but take at least bare minimum a picture of it and email it to training@BMS Management. Now, this is going to be for any training, any documentation you have that people went through training going forward. So if this is your OSHA 30, if somebody in your office gets their OSHA 10, this is for all training, including an IICRC or any other licenses that you may have to obtain, depending on your state requirements. We'd ask you to send everything over to training@BMS Management. The reason why we're doing this is we have implemented a certification tracking system. And what that does is allows us to see who all has obtained their OSHA 30. It allows us to see who has done their ladder awareness training, who has their forklift training, or who had the training in order for them to operate an aerial lift. It allows us to track all of that, and it allows us to be able to know if we need a certain person or a certain team with certain qualifications, we can very quickly and easily identify those people. In the past, this was managed at a local level, and what happened is files were lost, systems were not developed in order to make sure we track everything. But this is something that's new that we are utilizing so we can know everybody that has received their appropriate respirator training or has their immunization so they can work with bloodborne pathogens or in hospitals. All that stuff is being developed as part of the system. Now, the system is new. It's not 100%, We are finding bugs, but we're working through every one that we locate. And so I would encourage you, any training that you have going forward, that you send it to training at BMS Management so that we can start populating the system. And then what's going to happen is we're going to start turning around and giving you guys access to the system a little bit later on so that you can go through and see what training everybody has had, and maybe you go through and you identify that we haven't gone through slips, trips, and falls with our team members in the last 6 months, or half of them haven't gone through the training. So why don't we have a slips, trips, and falls awareness training to get everybody up to speed? So this is going to be a big tool that I think you guys will really appreciate and really enjoy going forward, and you'll learn more about it. But biggest thing I'm going to continue to stress, and I know I've said it about 3 times now, so I'm going to say it 4th time, send everything to training at BMS Management with all your certifications. So that was what we did last month. So February, which is this call that we're on right now, the initial part of this call was program rollout. We kind of identifying the program and what we're trying to accomplish with this program. But something that's going to happen with every single call and every single meeting that we have is this is not going to be just kind of a talk, let's talk through things. You're going to have homework assignments. Now, these homework assignments are not going to be long, drawn-out deals. This actually, the first one we have for this is relatively easy. Some ones that we'll have coming up in the near future are going to be more training. It may be e-learning training. It may be a task that we want you to do at your individual location just so you can get used to doing things. These are going to be simple, and these are things that we're going to ask you to do over the course of the next few weeks in general. But one of the first things I'm going to ask you guys to do is your homework assignment after this call is I want you to get with your operations managers, your construction managers, whoever you report to, and actually even involve your GMs for that matter as well. I want you to identify your top 5 safety issues at your branch. What has caused people to be injured? What are things that you potentially see could happen? What are some of your near misses that nobody's been injured yet, but you know what, if that ladder had fallen the different way or that tool had fallen off the right side of the ladder versus the left side, that could hit somebody in the head, it could have caused an injury. Whatever it is, we're asking you to identify your top 5 safety issues at your branch. And we're going to ask that you have this back to us by next Friday. Now, I will send a recap email out after this meeting, and it'll probably happen later on today. And I'm going to I'll remind you on this, but I'm going to ask that you actually email us back and let us know what those top 5 things are. The second thing that we want you to do is we want you to establish a day and a time every week that you guys are going to start holding your toolbox talks. Now, most of you guys, or not most of you, several of you guys already do these, some on a consistent basis, some try to do it on a consistent basis, but this is something that we're going to start working towards that we want you guys doing every single week. Carve out 30 minutes on, maybe it's Tuesday morning or Thursday morning, have everybody come a little bit early, maybe it's part of your weekly meeting, but we want you to establish a time for your toolbox talks. If you're currently doing them, great, just tell us what days and times you do that, just so that we know that you're putting focus on it. So that's your homework assignment for this week. Top 5 issues that you have at your branch and a date and time for your toolbox talk. So think through that. If you have questions about those, you can reach out to myself, you can reach out to Crystal, you can reach out to Tom Snow. We're more than happy to talk through any of this with you and talk through any type of complications or questions that you may have associated with that. So that kind of is our February call. Now, I want to talk to you guys about what we're going to be doing in the future. And before I do that, I want to kind of bring one more thing to your attention. So when you get your 5 issues at your branch and your weekly toolbox talks established, I'm going to ask you that you email it to safety@BMS Management. Now, I know we just talked about the other email address. That's all for your certifications. Safety is going to be for anything that has to do with investigations, any type of reports you have to send up. Instead of having to send it to me or remembering, do I have to send it to Crystal, who handles all of our risk management and our insurance, or, maybe I should send this to Tom Snow because I've talked to him several times. We're all on that safety email address. So I would encourage you, anything that's associated with safety, that you send it to that email address. If you have a question, hey, I've had these issues regarding to fall protection. I'm not sure how to go about doing this training or locating somebody that can do harness training because I'm not familiar with it. Send that question. It can be short. It can be simple to at training. You can even take a picture of a job site saying, hey, is this an issue? Take a picture of it, send it to safety@BMS Management. This is how we're going to communicate as the Safety Advocacy Council is through this email address. So your five issues and your date for your toolbox talks, send it to safety@BMS Management. So that was February. Let's talk about what's going to happen next month. So we're obviously asking you to establish these toolbox talks, date and time. And some of you guys have these toolbox talks, but some of you guys don't. Some of you guys don't know where to get them. So our commitment to you as a safety committee is between now and next March, on our next meeting, we are going to have top 10 topics for your toolbox talks. We may have more than that, but we're committing to you that we're going to at least have 10 of these that are going to become our standard going forward for all of us to use. Now, that's part of the reason why we asked for your 5 safety issues, because we want to make sure that we cover as many of your safety issues as part of these toolbox talks. So when you start doing them on a weekly basis, you're going to have at least 10 weeks worth of topics that you can talk to. And we're going to continue to add to this library. Now, we will add to this library and they will be stored on Caddo. We are looking at other options that we can give you as well so that they're easily accessible out in the field. If you need these topics because you have an issue on a job site, you want to do a safety stand down and kind of stop everything and talk through things, that's what we're going to make this as easy for you guys. And if you have suggestions on how we can make it easier for you, by all means, send us an email at safety@BMS Management. Part of that training also next week, we're also going to talk about the differences between your certification, which you have with your OSHA 30, and awareness and toolbox talks. And we're going to give you some tips on how to go about teaching these, whether you're doing these or if you're working with other people in your office to actually teach them. We're going to talk through all those scenarios and make sure we give you as much ammunition as you need so that you can go out to that field and make sure that you're able to relay all this information to them. In April, we're going to start talking about investigations. Some of you guys are currently helping us with investigations when somebody gets injured and collecting the paperwork. We have some online training that we're going to ask that you go through, and we're going to talk about the paperwork, what we need filled out, how you can go about filling it out. Again, we're looking for options to make this easy for you, because I know it's difficult when you're out in the field and you're like, I forgot, I don't have that form with me or on me. So are there options that we can do it online? I don't have the answer for that yet, but those are the things we're looking at, trying to figure out a way to make this as easy for you guys as we can. In May, we're going to start talking about site inspection training and what is a job hazard analysis. Give you a little bit of insight. You guys do this on a day-to-day basis. You guys walk on job sites all the time as it is right now, and you identify that's an issue because we have live electrical wires hanging down from the ceiling. And you guys, in general, I like to think that all you guys are then getting with the building engineers or getting with whoever you need to, shut the power off to the building or at least to that area so you're not going to have somebody that gets shocked. Well, that's exactly what a job hazardous analysis is doing. You're doing it. You're just not documenting that you're doing it in general. Some locations and some situations, people are doing that, but we need to make a more standard approach to it. And then we're not saying it's going to happen on every job. Eventually, you want to get to that point, but we want to start putting a system in place so we can start doing it at least a couple times a week so that we're at least increasing and making more people aware of the potential hazards that are out there. So this is what we have planned for the next 5 months. Now, this is very much a dynamic process, so this very well could change. But this is what we're seeing as how we're going to roll out this process, at least through May. Now, what's going to happen in June and July, we're going to play that by ear. And part of that's going to come from suggestions that you guys give us as far as, you know what, I'd really like to know how to do this, or this would be helpful if we could have a conversation about whatever. This meeting has very much been one-sided with only Tom Head and myself talking. Going forward, we're going to ask that you guys interject a lot more and be a part of this conversation and actually talk to us and tell us about what you're seeing out in the field. Because, again, we're not doing this because we want to do it. We're doing it so that we can help you guys get better out in the field and give you the resources that you need in order to succeed, especially with this new position and this new role. So that being said, I'm going to stop there again, and now I'm going to open it up to all you guys. What questions do you have? What thoughts do you have? Please take a minute and interject anything you have. And Tom Snow, I know you're out there, and I've done all the talking. Tom Snow, if you want to jump in there as well, please go ahead and do so at this time.
Yeah, good, great job, Colin. Thanks for breaking it out. The only thing I really want to interject is over the last couple of years, I've talked to several of us, and we've all wanted this program, and we're excited about it. The main thing to have a good safety program is you need support, resources, and awareness. And as Tom said in the beginning, is everybody we talk to, every one of our regional VP, we have every support and every resource we need. The only part what we can't produce is the awareness, and that's where it comes from. Everybody on this call, if we can't get you awareness and your involvement, we're going to have a very much a uphill battle, and that doesn't help anybody. So as you're going through this and you're looking at your 5 things, let's put some awareness, some effort, some attention behind it, because that's what it takes to make a great program.
All right. Thank you, Tom. So what questions do you guys have about the program? What comments do you guys have? I'm going to open it up to you guys for a few minutes, so please interject. Again, this call is for you, so please let us know what your thoughts are.
Well, this is Robert Melvin from the DFW location. I'm one of the ops supervisors. My main problem or concern at this point in regards to safety has to do with the work we're doing in the field and the education and or communication with our PJCs about our environmental hazards that we deal with on a day-to-day basis on these job sites. So what I would like to do is eventually, get the sales manager involved or someone else involved so we can raise the awareness on some of these issues that I'm seeing and some of these potential hazards that we're possibly exposing our customers, our vendors, and first of all, our employees to on these job sites.
So to your point, Melvin, thank you for that, by the way. To your point, you're absolutely 100% right. This is not a operations function only. We need to make sure that our teams are, especially on the sales side of things, that they're able to identify things ahead of time, because I understand exactly where you're coming from. They sell the job, and then they come around and they say, hey, just get it done, but they don't always take everything into account. So this is where we need to raise the awareness, not just on the operations side, but absolutely on the sales side as well. So good point. We have not discussed a whole lot of that because we kind of took it from the other side, but you're 100% right. We need to make sure we have systems and programs in place and make sure they're included in on these conversations. So, because they're the ones that are setting everything up for you guys on the front end. So thank you for that, Melvin. What other questions do you guys have?
That's the other reason why we have the at safety. If you feel that you're in a position, or if you needed to say something and you didn't feel you could go to your direct supervisor, that's why there is a council and why we have that at safety. You could stress your concern there also.
And to Tom's point, part of the whole deal with safety is not about getting people in trouble or any of that type of situation. It's about we are more aware about, or we are more concerned about being aware about situations. If we don't know about it, we can't correct it. So that's why we're working through this. So please, by all means, if you see something that doesn't work, if you're having issues, if you're seeing that you're not getting the support from the PJC, then we need to look at how we can develop systems to make sure that they're included in these conversations. And maybe more of them may need to be included on these conversations as well. What other questions you guys or comments do you guys have?
Yes, this is Andrew Carter from the Nashville location. As a safety advocate, what kind of authority do we have when it comes to, stuff we see on the job site and whatnot?
So the way we look at it, so first off, every employee has the right to stop work at any time or not perform a task if they don't feel like it's being done appropriately or safely. So from that standpoint, you have that full authority. If you see something that doesn't look right, by all means, you should be able to stop that. And now here's the thing you got to remember: if you see something that doesn't look safe, you should stop whatever they're doing. And I would encourage you to first reach out to the ops manager and get them involved with it. This is not immediately turn around and email at safety. Now, if you're not getting the attention or the help that you're wanting or needing out there on the job site, then absolutely reach out to Tom Snow, reach out to myself, reach out to Crystal. That's why we have this in place, because we 100% want to make sure that you guys have the authority to stop work and make sure you have the authority to make sure things are done safely. Now, that's not saying that you have full authority to stop work and say, hey, we're going to go out and buy these nifty ladder attachments so that we make sure we're getting on the roof properly. We're here to make recommendations. So if you see something that you think would make the process better or make it safer, I'm not giving you full authority to go out and spend money everywhere you need to in order to get that tool or that safety vest or that helmet or that hard hat. We need to bring it to attention. That's part of the conversation that we need to have. And if it's a major issue we're seeing, that's why we have Tom Head and Rob Clay involved with a lot of these conversations, so we can go to them and say, hey, look, we see this situation. We are making a recommendation that we need to move forward with X, Y, and Z process going forward. So I don't know if that really answers your question 100%, Andrew, but does that answer your question? Does that give you at least a little bit more insight as we continue to define this role?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, everybody has a right. It doesn't matter who that employee is, what level, whether they're a technician or a helper or a laborer, everybody has a right to make sure they're performing their job safely. All right. What other questions, comments do you guys have? All right, so I will say this, that again, if you have any questions going forward, please email safety. As a recap, I'm going to tell you again, your homework assignments going forward, and we need this by the end of next Friday, is what are your top 5 safety issues at your branch? And we need you to establish a day and a time for your weekly toolbox talks. So make sure you're able to email all that information, and hopefully yes, there it is. Make sure that you email all that information to safety at BMS Management so that we can track that and make sure that everybody's turning in that information. Unless there's any other questions or comments from either Tom Snow or Tom Head, do you guys have any last words that you want to say?
I would just say, Colin, I'm real excited that we've started this process. I appreciate everybody in the field participating today. I know it's been a long call, but we have to set the bar, and we're going to set that bar very high as it relates to safety. And I'm real proud of this committee coming together. I look forward to great things this year, and I look forward to us being a safer organization. So, Colin, good job, you, Tom, and Crystal, getting this set up and developed. And I look forward to all the advocates positioned out in the field, helping, providing insight, and helping us become a more safety-conscious culture.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. I'm going to end it there. Everybody, I appreciate your participation, just like Tom said as well. And again, do not hesitate to reach out to any of us that are on this committee, especially with questions. There are going to be questions. We expect them. We encourage them. Please continue to keep those line of communications open so that we can make this program the best that it can be. And the only way that it gets better is through your guys' recommendations and comments. Andrew and Melvin, thank you for participating. And going forward, we would love to have as many people participating and making comments as we can. So thank you for your time. Be safe out there. And we will be talking to you, everybody, in March. Thank you, guys.